and welcome to another episode of Ctrl Alt Defend. My name is Dirk Prinsloo, Cloud Architect here at BUI. And in today's session, we're going to talk about Purview only. There's been a lot of changes happening, so I'm going to cover the ones that were launched or announced or implemented in around May of this year. And I know it's June. I've been busy, so apologies for that, but bear with me. We got a lot of stuff to cover through. Okay, so first of all, there's a lot of news around DLP, but one I want to start with is Microsoft Foundry, right? So, obviously Foundry is where your devs build your custom AI apps and agents. And until now, DLP had no visibility into what users type into those type of applications. So classic problem, you kind of lock down SharePoint, Teams, and emails and stuff until somebody obviously posts a customer contract into one of these Foundry apps. So DLP policies can now evaluate the prompts inline, meaning it's before it reaches the LLM, which is good. And obviously Purview is going to check against your sensitive information types that you've got available, either built-in ones or maybe you've got some custom ones. Important caveat here is this is not free. You'll start noticing this across Purview. There are certain newer capabilities coming out, and this is one of those that are not free. It's pay as you go, meaning you must have a Purview subscription, which is an Azure subscription in the backend, but you pay on a consumption based driven. So if you've got an M365, E3 or E5 or even business premium licensing, you are not going to be covered for this. So just take note of that. There's no workflow changes here, but I would imagine you're going to plan your policy comms directly, because the only impact is obviously when people's prompts are being blocked. It was GA in mid to late June, which we are now in. So keep an eye out on that if you want to start using that. And always remember to run a DLP policy in simulation first, right? Or, can turn it on just to have no actions. But irrespective, test your policies first. Make sure that your order data is correct, because there's most certainly going to be some time to refine them. Cool. Next is insider risk management. So insider risk management obviously anonymizes users by default. I say obviously because that's the default setting. Yeah, you can change that. Like I said, it's great for privacy. But until now, if a risk signal was AI related, you couldn't see what happened or what the person was typing. You could see there's something happening, but you couldn't see the details. So that gap is now closing. Analysts can now view the actual prompt and response content that was tied to that insider risk indicator, while the identity remains anonymized. You get what I mean? So the de-anonymization is still a separate function that you need to go and change if you want to do that. But this is enabled by default, so it'll just appear, nothing for you to go and change. You might want to brief your insider risk management analysts, if you have those type of people, that they have access now to this additional information. Again, this one, GA mid-June, which is soon or now. So yeah, go check it out. And this is an interesting one. It's already in your tenant. Most likely you already seen this, but I'll mention it anyway. So the Activity Explorer by default used to have a timeline of about 7 days. That means when you open up Activity Explorer, it's 7 days. Typically, if you're in a high volume tenant where there's lots of things happening, you can go make a cup of coffee before that thing loads. So Microsoft trimmed this down and made the default only 1 day. You can still change the timeline, so data is not gone, but the default is now 1 day. It displays 1 day. And I mean, for most investigations, the 24 hours is the most important ones you want anyway. So, you can go and expand on that. So again, this one was already launched in mid-May. Like I said, you already probably have seen it. So fantastic. Microsoft helping every little bit helps, I guess. Okay, go and have a look. Copilot is obviously smart enough to use your emails as grounding data when obviously answering questions or responses. We know this already, right? M365, or shall I say Copilot, has got access to everything you've got access in M365, which includes your emails. but it's not great, or shall I say, it's great for internal content, but not so great when the email comes from an external sender that you obviously don't control. Think about it, right? So someone sends you a phishing email and Copilot just goes and summarizes or acts on it. So this is basically what the problem it solves. So it's around DLP again. So you'll start by setting up a DLP policy targeting M365 Copilot or Copilot Chat as your location, which is not new. We've seen this before. But the next one is the configuration of the actual rule, right? So once you've selected the location, the rule is email received from people outside your organization, and the action is the important one here, right? So restrict Copilot from processing that content. That's it. 2 settings and done. It just won't reference that external mail when generating responses. So that's what we want. No impact on email delivery, retention, or e-discovery. The emails and stuff is already there. Copilot just won't use it. So this is going GA around late July, August, apparently. So it's coming. It's not here yet, but it is in public preview from early in June. So now, go check it out. All right, so go for it. Again, sticking with insider risk management this time, talking about generative AI indicators. We've had these for a while, but it was kind of all or nothing. So Microsoft is now giving us a dial, which means we can select which kind of apps or things that we want to be part of that indicator. You tick the ones you want and you leave the rest. So you'll see on the screen here, there's a flyout panel on the right that shows which Copilots to include. The free ones are obviously safe to leave on, but you'll see the second column there. There are certain ones that are pay-as-you-go. Maybe discuss that first before you switch that on. Again, 0 user impact. Nobody gets to change comms email for this one. GA is mid to late June. Again, this time around, today. Could be July. I don't know. But after this has been rolled out, go to IRM settings, go to policy indicators, generative AI apps, untick the ones you don't need. 5-minute job. Done. Labeling. Now, this is also an interesting one for me personally because I've been dealing with this with a few customers recently. And this is relating to labeling and discovering sensitive information in data that resides out of M365. So yes, we have data governance. You've got those data maps and unified catalogs, but you have to set up a lot of config stuff to actually scan those repositories. So Microsoft is now breaching that gap by, having auto labeling policies directly applied to things outside of M365. There's a lot of data sources. I'll read them out to you here. Azure Storage, Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, Synapse Analytics, Azure Database for MySQL, PostgreSQL, Databricks, Unity Catalog, Snowflake, and apparently there are a lot more. So the key design point here is that M365 and non-M365 scopes are separate in this policy wizard. So tick the Azure Storage without obviously worrying what the impact is on your SharePoint auto labeling, for example. Takes about a couple of minutes to set up. You'll obviously have to wait 15 minutes to rescan, but then you can start applying your labels automatically. There is a catch though. It was actually GA in December last year. Microsoft said, thank you for your patience, which we all know mean we're not ready yet. So it is still in public preview now. We don't know when it's going GA, so probably just look at the message center and they'll have an updated date there. But we can start using it when it arrives. Awesome. Last one for today. So kind of hands up here if you ever made a DLP policy change, maybe as part of an incident response situation and you're waiting. Right, you don't know how long this DLP policy is going to sync, and the SLA that Microsoft published was around 2 hours for a DLP policy to sync. They have now changed it. The SLA is now, or sync SLA to be specific, is now 30 minutes. So that's a 4 times improvement with no admin effort required. So again, no changes to policy logic, nothing changes. It just means these policies are now syncing a lot quicker. 30 minutes is still, not an instant, but compared to 2 hours, it feels like magic, right? Microsoft magic, which usually works eventually. But enough said, that was all I had time for today for Purview. As always, if you are interested in learning more about new things in the Microsoft security world, as always, subscribe to our channel. So until the next one, cheers.